I know. Some of you may be thinking, what the hell are you talking about with this title? I'll explain, but before we start, one small point. When I'm talking about active immersion and passive immersion, I'm always talking about the understanding of those terms in the immersion learning community, because there are other communities that define those terms a little bit different. One example would be reading. In the immersion community, generally all reading is active. There is no passive reading, so if you read a story to enjoy it, that's active reading. In other communities, there are people that define this kind of reading as passive reading. Active reading, on the other hand, would be you're trying to reflect on the written text, you're trying to write summaries and similar things. So the understanding is a little bit different. So please keep this in mind. This is only for the immersion learning community. So, what is the general understanding of those terms? Active means you pay full attention to the material you're currently consuming and try to pick up as much as possible. An example of this would be just sitting in front of your PC or TV and enjoying a show and trying to focus on what they are saying. Passive, on the other hand, means you're not giving the material you're consuming your full attention. You're doing something else on the side. A common example would be while cooking, while cleaning, or similar things. But this doesn't really work. Why? Let me explain. A while back I already talked about my feeling that it's really hard to paint all passive immersion with the same brush. Because there's just a huge difference in how much you get out of passive immersion depending on what you're doing right now, whether you're cooking or whether you're at work. So the first problem is that there's a huge variation in what passive immersion gives you and how much effect it has on your progress. Also, due to this image of passive being inferior to active immersion, people tend to neglect it a little bit and don't use it as much as they maybe could. The next point is the image that sitting in front of your TV or in front of your PC is the peak of what you can get out of active immersion in terms of focus. Speaking from personal experience, I get a lot more out of it if I listen to my material while I'm out for a walk, especially during the night when there are not a lot of people outside. I don't have any pictures that distract me, I have only the audio to rely on. So for me, this image of sitting in front of the TV or PC isn't really applicable. There also seems to be some science that backs this up, that doing something menial while you are doing something you want to concentrate on improves your focus. A study from 2006 looked at the impact of using a stress ball on 6th graders and seemed to find a positive impact on their attention span. A 2011 study found that chewing gum increases alertness, reduces chronic but not acute stress, and enhances cognitive skills. According to the article Fidget Toys or Focus Tools by Lindsay Beale, in general, the most effective tools don't require the person to look at what he or she is doing and can generally be done out of view. But the article also mentions the important point that what works for any one individual depends on that person's sensory preferences. What you may find calming and organizing may be quite different from what helps your child or another adult. But keep in mind, this is science. This means that the results are rather specific to the conditions they use to study a certain effect and can't necessarily be extrapolated to other things and you personally. In the end, you have to experiment what improves your focus and what harms it. Given the points mentioned before, we propose a new view on input: low focus input and high focus input. The idea is pretty simple. High focus input means that the amount of time in 1 hour, for example, that you focus 100% on your material is high, and there is low downtime where your mind wanders. Low focus input, on the other hand, is the exact opposite, meaning you have a lot of time where you can't focus on whatever you're listening to and you have to focus on the task at hand. All of this can be quite easily shown in a nice little graph. Rather than having the division between active and passive, all listening you do falls somewhere on this continuum. Some examples of high focus input could be while doing something mindless in a video game, while cooking, while sitting in front of your PC or TV and watching, or while walking outside. Some examples of low focus input could be while driving in traffic, at work, or while playing an FPS game. But keep in mind, as mentioned before, this depends a lot on what you personally react to and what exactly the task is you are doing. So these are just some possibilities. You can make your time while working on the lower end of the focus spectrum more efficient. Some of the basics are that you are using material that you are familiar with during low focus input. The usage of condensed audio also can help a lot. Condensed audio is perfect if you are using the walk outside while listening to material route, as you don't have visuals anyway, and this way you can get more bang for your buck. Depending on the show, the condensed audio is sometimes 10 minutes shorter than the original track, sometimes even more. And we have the right tool for you. The new condensed audio feature of the Migaku Browser Extension. First, let's talk about the setup. You need to update the Migaku dictionary to the newest version. Now, simply open the options and in the bottom right corner you will see a new button. Click on it and select the folder you want to save your audio in. That's it. The usage of the feature is quite easy. Once you're in your browser, just click on the button Condensed Audio in the toolbar. Next, the extension will ask you if you want to export the condensed audio. The same window also shows you how long the finished file will be. Click OK, and that's it. All you have to do now is sit and wait. In YouTube, you can simply open a new tab and watch other videos while the extension records the audio. There are some minor differences in Netflix. In Netflix, the first window will also ask you whether you want to export the audio for the whole show or just one episode. If you decide to export the whole show, the extension will run until there are no episodes left. The second difference is that you can't just use the second tab to continue watching on Netflix. But there is an easy way around this. In Chrome, just click on your profile in the top right corner, and the last button allows you to add a new profile. You can just create a second profile purely for recording while you continue watching as normal on your first profile. That's it. Pretty simple, right? I hope you find the new feature helpful and can't wait for all the things to come just as much as we do.